Can I just ask a question?
Sure, yes, that's beautiful.
In the beginning, you had said to bring in the FBI and feds, and did they ever?
No, no. The feds came in a limited fashion in doing lab work on DNA and identification, profiling. They sent helicopters. They did some, you might say, good work. I mean, weren't for the FBI, they wouldn't have been able to get the DNA results that they got recently. So DNI has played a role. The feds have played a role, but it's limited. And my whole thrust, as I speak now, is it needs to be unlimited. Suffolk County Police cannot handle the scope of this case, even with Uhrman. We need them out. We need the feds in. We need a task force like the task forces that have been appointed all across this country on other serial killers. You go to, I've studied them. In my office, we're spending an enormous amount of time studying other serial killers and what was done about them all across the country over the years. And there's cases in California where there's hundreds of people assigned to investigate that case. And that's the kind of thing we need here. We need a separate, perhaps special prosecutor, maybe with the new Trump administration. We could talk to them about it. But we need that. The Suffolk County Police cannot handle the scope. Look at what happened the other day. $13 million was federal funds that were available to be used in the investigation. And Ray Tierney, he was a good guy, good straight shooter. I don't blame him for some of these mistakes. He just does what the police give him, they feed him. And he had come on TV and said, and in the media and said, we desperately need that $13 million because we can't even complete this case with Rex Uhrman without the $13 million. Hold on. $13 million? Those cops, the detectives, and some of them are making $300,000 a year each, plus their benefits. $13 million is not going to solve this case. And that's the police are begging for $13 million. They don't even have that. How in God's name are they going to solve a case which is spread all across the United States?
Well, whose decision was it for the FBI not to come in? Or how did that transpire?
Burke threw them out. Burke said that Burke threw out the FBI. He threw out the Nassau County Police. Remember, 2 of the bodies are found over the Nassau County line in Nassau County. He threw out the New York City Police, who were doing work because you remember Shannon left from New York City that night, and there's some of the other girls were from New York City, and he threw out the Jersey City Police, who Cesar Camacho, who was doing a fabulous job of investigating this. All were told to step down, and then Burke shut down the investigation to 1 part-time detective. So, do you see the consistency here of what's going on? And to this day, I haven't seen much of a change in the police behavior that I saw in the years with Burke, in that the bust of Uhrman takes place because of technical things, like DNA connection, connecting the pings off the towers that come to Massapequa, something they could have done for 12 years and they didn't do. And connecting up with a car that that Uhrman had been driving when one of the victims was killed. So the police, the work that was done for that was technical work, and that's great. It's wonderful. But the knocking on doors and interviewing witnesses and talking to people and getting that evidence and so forth, I haven't seen it being done. And I have some experience because I have all these witnesses who they never talk to. One of them is me. Right? And that's true because in October 7th of, I think it was of last year, a year ago, October, Commissioner Harrison, who was still the police commissioner, called me and said, I want to hold a press conference. And he came to my office, and we held a press conference together. And he said in the press conference, I partnered up with John Ray because I had given him some witnesses, and he interviewed them with me himself. He said, we partnered up with John Ray, and if you're somebody who you don't trust the police, you don't like them, you have some reason not to want to talk to them, okay, it's fine. called John Ray. You can see it, it's still on tape, that he did that. So no matter what you think of John Ray and all these accusations I've faced from doing this investigation as I have, you know, trying to get the spotlight, trying to have media coverage and all that, notwithstanding all of that, if you're the police and the commissioner has said that, and you know it, even though he then retires, wouldn't you wonder since October of last year until now what evidence John Ray has? Wouldn't you ask? They haven't. Not once. And I have plenty of new evidence. Whether it's valuable or not would be for them to decide. But they can't decide that if they don't know of it. And that's what's still going on. And it's the same characters who are running the show there now who were around and doing that when Bert was in charge. There's his acolytes who are still doing this. So I say the police department has a very serious problem. And I have no better evidence of that than recently, in case you've been paying attention to the local papers anyway, there's a guy, a police officer from the town of Babylon, who gets busted running a prostitution ring out of 2 different houses I hope one of them was in the wrong contract. One of them in Babylon, I forget where the other one was. And what he does is, and by the way, he's running the big ring. He's got a gym teacher from one of the schools that's involved in it.
I heard about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got in trouble. He was supposed to be, I think, in the 1st precinct. He was in his jurisdiction, 1st precinct, and then he left the post, and then they looked into it, and then they, yeah.
You're right. You're right on. That's very good observation. Good memory. He think about this. What does it really mean, though? Not only is he running 2 rings, 2, which takes a lot of effort. You know, I mean, you have to collect your money. You've got to. I mean, it's a business, right? He's running 2 of them, and he's running them all the years that this investigation is going on, dealing with sex workers, dead sex workers in Suffolk County. He's running this as a cop, an active cop who gets, I think, 6 different decorations for his great work that this man has done. And he leaves. Think about what it means. He leaves his post while he is working and drives in his police car to the house that he's running because somebody committed a robbery or a burglary there, and he goes there to see what's going on. Goes out of his sector into a different precinct, and why does that matter? It matters because, think about it, this guy has the confidence to think he could do that without repercussions, or he wouldn't have done it. And if he thinks he could do that, it's probably because he could do that, except when something or other went wrong. Why could he think he could do that? It's the same police department. Something is desperately wrong here, which then takes me now back. How much time do I have?
45 minutes.
Oh, all right,
We got to get to the new stuff.
all right. All right, well, I'm going to go back to, remember I said that what I'll do is, there's things that are new, dealing with the beginning of this case. I'll talk about that, but there's 2 questions, and I'll take them over.
No question. I was just gonna say that man was 2 years away from retirement. He's making over 150 a year, and he just blew it. Now he's going to jail. Whatever. He made the choice he made.
Well, he can't be alone.
No.
There's no way he's alone.
No.
You can answer.
I don't know if you can speak on this or if you know of any connection between Rex and what's been going on in Oak Beach. Is there any kind of correlation?
We think there's enough evidence to investigate that question and needs to be done very definitely.
The 13
And it hasn't been done. Okay? There is, and that's some of the new evidence I'm going to tell you about.
Okay, yeah, and I'll hold.
Okay? All right? Does that help you?
Absolutely.
All right, good. Your mind is going in the right direction, by the way. Good.
I'm a neighbor, so.
Oh, yeah? Are you
Is it going in the right direction?
You're in Massapequa Park.
Proper, but I went to school with Rex.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Well, tell us about him. Where'd you go to school with, Rex?
They went to school.
Oh, we've been
Did you
took
date
over
him?
it the entire time. You haven't told me this.
I did not date Brad. He was just kind of an odd guy. He was very to himself. He didn't really hang out with anybody. He was just kind of very on his own and just odd.
Did you know the Harringtons?
I did not.
Okay.
But I graduated the year before.
Oh, okay, all right, so, very interesting, things have changed, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, come on.
Very nice, thanks for telling us.
You're welcome.
I need it.
All right, so some of the things that are new,
I'm sorry.
okay? The rest of it, you know. We discovered something that bothered me from the beginning of the case, and bothered me in a way that I probably should have taken care of this before. I should have looked into it before, but it you know, the thing didn't go in that direction. There's so many directions things can go, and I'm not a cop, and I don't run a police department. You know, I'm a little tiny law office out here in Suffolk County, and I do a lot of big cases. You hear about that, but we do it out of a little office. We don't have the personnel to do all this work. So when my staff, including Parker here, work on this case, we're desperately taking away from other cases to keep us going and keep our income. So it takes a lot out of us. And the result of that is we can only go down certain trails one at a time. And this case has opened so many different paths that I can't look at them all. I just can't. I try. So you'll know it's not an exaggeration when you take all my staff over the years, since 2011 until now, and not only the Shannon Gilbert case and the other 10 people, but now the Rex Ruhrman case and the Long Island serial killer whole package, and all the people who have called me and have become clients who escaped him in other parts of the country and so forth. It's not an exaggeration to say that we keep time records so we know that we're telling the truth. Over 50,000 hours of time on this case. So you get it, when I tell you that, you know, I know a few things and maybe somebody would have talked to me about it. I don't remember it all, but we have a good deal of information. So with that in mind, the path I should have gone down, and I noticed it, I made a point of it at one point, and we just didn't follow it. And that was this. Why would 24-year-old sex worker, attractive girl, right, go with a man in an SUV from Manhattan in the middle of the night all the way to pitch black Oak Beach in the middle of nowhere for a $300 tryst? Doesn't make any sense. It never made any sense to me. But people said, well, that's, you know, she didn't have any work that night, so she needed to get some money. That's what she did. So all right, I kind of accepted that. And who told me that were a variety of people who had that belief, including the police department and Michael Pack, the driver. Now, I interviewed Michael Pack. First, I met him in a diner, had breakfast with him, and then I took his testimony. How many times, Parker? I think 3, right? 2 or 3? 3 times. I took his testimony, you know, in depositions. And so I know Michael Pack. One of the things I noticed right away, and this is where you kind of have to have a little bit of an investigative mind. At breakfast, for Michael Pack, every penny counted. Every penny counted. He would add up the coffee and so on. And I noticed that. So peculiar even. And every time I said, well, I need you to come to Suffolk County, who's paying for my gas? This is not a guy who's going to drive his SUV to Oak Beach to get a $50 fee. He's going to want to know who's paying the gas. So something's wrong with this picture. But I just never followed it down further. And now we have. And here's what we found. Okay? First of all, Michael Pack was not just, as he's claimed and as the police have said, Shannon's driver who was working independently, and they got to know each other, and this is what he did. Michael Pack worked for a sex trafficking organization in New Jersey. a very powerful sex trafficking organization, national in scope. It trafficked in sex and it trafficked in cocaine. And he was one of their drivers. So Shannon didn't just pull him out of a hat and happen to meet him and use him that night. So already you know something's up. Second problem was Shannon's wallet only had a few dollars in it. Brewer claims, depending upon, I took his testimony, and also I took his testimony 2 or 3 times. And depending on what day it is, he tells a different story. Brewer claimed that it was a $300 tryst. Then at another point he claimed no money was exchanged. Testified, no money was exchanged whatsoever. Now I have interviewed, I wouldn't say innumerable, I would say numerous sex workers, male and female, mostly female. I've interviewed them over the years in this case, and I've had representatives with some of them, and I've represented them just for my own practice. So I kind of get to know the business a little. And one thing I know for sure, sex workers don't go to sex trysts without getting paid. They don't wait till the end to get paid, or it's very rare if they do. Extremely unlikely. So somebody had to pay her. Something else we noticed was that the phone call that's traceable to Brewer lasted for only about a minute. You don't make arrangements over the phone for a tryst in a foreign place, foreign to Manhattan that is, and make an agreement on the terms of what you're going to do and when in a minute or 2 minutes. Doesn't happen. So somebody had to have some other communication to have made that arrangement. Notice something else. This takes place, this phone call, the one phone call, which may have been a confirmation, yeah, are you coming kind of thing, after midnight, May 1st, 2010. There's an element in this case, a huge element, which the police have willfully, blindly denied and have ridiculed me, and the press has ridiculed me for bringing this up. And that is the element of cults. There's a cultist element in this case that's undeniable, like there is in so many other serial killer cases. This is Wild Porg's night, May 1st, the night of the witches. The night that people in cults celebrate. It's a big celebrating night for them. That's the night she disappears. Never noticed it before, so we started looking into the cults. And I say that with the involvement of cultism in this case, including with Horniman and his family, is so deep that that is an investigation that's going to take you to other states, it's going to take you to other places and other people, and the police just don't want to hear it because they have human under their thumb. They know if they get him convicted even of one, it's over, everybody goes home, and the rest of it fades into history. And that's one thing that can't happen if this type of investigation I'm talking about takes place. But I noticed that too on the night that Shannon disappears. I noticed something else. We went and checked. We had heard from Camacho that Shannon had been busted in a ring in New Jersey, a local ring, as a prostitute in the, that's the police word, right? In Jersey. And that we'd been told that what had happened was because of that bust in Jersey, she turned her attention to getting customers in Manhattan and in Long Island because she couldn't really work anymore in Jersey due to the bust. So that all made a lot of sense, and I kind of let it go. And then we started looking into it, and my very good staff, small staff, good staff, really good young people helping out, looked into it. And we discovered that Shannon Gilbert was under indictment in a sex trafficking bust, a huge bust in Jersey City, from a certain building in Jersey City that was being run I think it was a place called Sherman Avenue, but I'm not sure, by a very infamous criminal. And she was under actual indictment. She was arrested and busted. And her name, she's named in the indictment. So, you know, typically when they make a big ring bust, they say, you know, Joe Smith and Jane Doe's 100 or so other Jane Doe's, and you don't name them. She's named. She's important enough that she's actually named in the indictment. I have the indictment. We got it. Okay? And in that indictment, she's busted for trafficking in cocaine and in sex. And the guy who was running it is a guy named Joe Ruiz. Joe Ruiz was an infamous trafficker on a national scale. And he came up with a new concept, which makes a lot of marketing sense. When you go, if you're John, and the girl's coming, what's the standard traditional thing that happens besides money? Drugs. You gotta bring the girl drugs, right? So if you're going to pay, you're also going to give her drugs, cocaine, whatever it may be. That's pretty standard. This guy figured it out to flip. What he would do is, if you were John and you wanted to buy her a girl, you would get her for the sex, and she would also bring you drugs. Get it? And that was the trafficking trick he had. And it worked famously. So much so that according to the indictment, not according to me, but according to the indictment, these girls working for him were making $2,500 to $5,000 a night. Okay? A lot of that was the coke, the price of the coke, but still, that's what they were making. They were making at least on their own $400 an hour. Right? And they were high-end girls. These were not the girls who were broken down from too much drugs over too many years. These were high-end, hot girls. And they go down, and she's one of them. So she's not just nobody. So we went a little further, and I located some of the other girls who were arrested in that bus. One of them is still about to talk to me. The other one has talked to me. And she confirmed everything I said. And the police have not talked to her in Suffolk County. Now, while Shannon was under indictment, she disappears. Think about that. If you have a defendant who, by the way, it turns out Shannon was a cooperating witness, otherwise known as a snitch, right? When you have somebody, if you are the law enforcement authority and you're protecting your helper, you make sure if she disappears, you find her. Mm-hmm. Nobody found her. Only Cesar Camacho was looking, and he was tossed. All right? Shannon Gilbert disappears under those circumstances. Starting to change your view of how this all went down and why, possibly. Nothing dispositive here, but shouldn't these things have been looked into? So I looked into them now, and I've gotten all this new information that I'm telling you about. Right? The day Pat drives her that morning after he leaves her, he meets a guy in Queens on Horace Harding Boulevard at a Dunkin' Donuts. And there supposedly, he's going to make a deposit on behalf of this other driver into a machine to give it to the organization he's working for. He himself admits that happened, Pat. He told the police that happened. So it happened. And wouldn't one want to know who are the receivers of that money? Where are they? What's going on? Why are they in this? Well, the guy who met Pac at the Dunkin' Donut, he was a mystery guy. Cops never said anything about him. I found him. I located him in Miami. And I spoke to him. And he told me the police never interviewed him. When you read the police narrative, the official narrative of what happened, they claimed, they confirmed that Pac's story was credible. The only way they could have confirmed that would have been to talk to this guy from Miami. They never talked to him. Just like they never talked to a whole bunch of other witnesses in Oak Beach. To this day. Should that tell you something? New information? Well, there's more. I'm using Sherman Avenue, I'm not sure that's the name of the street, but the Sherman Avenue building in Jersey City is infamous. Not only was Joe Ruiz, who's in jail in California right now, not only was Joe Ruiz responsible for that trafficking operation out of that house, but another man was running an operation out of that house. A man who owned the building, whose name I won't tell you. But that man who owned the building was running a child pornography operations, over 30,000 images he got busted with. And he got busted only a few months after Shannon Gilbert disappeared, a few months after the indictment that she was involved in the same building, and Joe Ruiz was renting from this guy in that building. 30,000 child porn operation. Nationwide, perhaps international-wide operation of child pornography. Connected to this whole operation. And this guy gets busted. That's how we know about the 30,000. When he gets busted, it's a task force that takes him down. It's a multi-state task force that takes him down. And who was in charge of the task force? Suffolk County Police Department. And who was in charge of the Suffolk County Police Department task force that took this guy down? Dominic Verone, former chief of police of Suffolk County, who was the first one to talk about Shannon Gilbert's disappearance and told the public the following: she drowned. He's the same officer who said and put out a letter to the public when he was the chief of police of Suffolk County, saying to the public, don't worry, you're all safe, talking to the women of Suffolk County, you're all safe when these bodies were being found. After all, he was only killing prostitutes. And he was in charge of the task force that does this bust. You mean to tell me that he didn't know about Shannon Gilbert beforehand? You mean to tell me that it would just be another coincidence where he had no knowledge? I mean, there were two different indictments. They may not have crossed over. You mean to tell me that? Would any rational person believe that? So, if he knew of Shannon Gilbert, why did he go through all this other...
Who knows?
Why did the police tell this other story that they're still telling to this day?